Welcome back to Sledgehammer Horror, guys. I am Ken Sledge, and let's talk horror. Today, I am joined by the beautiful Brooklyn Ann. Brooklyn, how you doing today?
Oh, pretty good. Got a cold. Got the Dayquil.
Yeah, definitely. And the day that we are recording is actually a beautiful Friday the 13th. So, what better day to have a cold than today?
Yep. Still Team Freddy.
There you go. Well, I do want to say real quick, just a little bit about you before we actually get rolling here. Brooklyn is an author who writes horror, romance, and urban fantasy. She has been obsessed with horror movies since she was a toddler. And in addition to collecting horror memorabilia, she has also written a series of B horror novels that feature a final couple instead of a final girl, which is super awesome. And she's currently working on converting the first book, the summer camp slasher, His Final Girl, into a screenplay. Now, I do want to say also, all of the social media links for Brooklyn Ann are down here in the description. So make sure you click that. Make sure you're giving her a follow so you can stay up to date on what she's doing. But how did you get started in writing horror?
I honestly probably grade school. It was the little color pages. They'd be like cute fluffy bunnies and whatnot, but I'd give them like blood dripping fangs and red eyes and stuff, and
Yeah.
kind of disturbed some of them. But on the bright side, my mom ran the preschool, and she was my horror buddy already, so she just like told the other teachers not to worry. And I would write up little stories about them attacking people and whatnot. And
That's so awesome. It's great that you never grew out of it too. That you keep that creativity inside of you and you've manifested it into an adult. So,
mm,
where is the easiest place for people to read your writings?
probably Amazon and also Apple and Google. I'm on ebook. I'm going to set up a Patreon so that I can fund audio because I know a lot of people have been asking me like, when they can get my books in audio, and I'm working on it, but it's expensive.
Yeah, see, I know it's not the easiest thing to do, but the good thing
hmm
is you guys don't have to go far searching because, as I said before, not only are the social media links down here in the description, but so are the links to all of her work. So make sure you're clicking these links and checking out the work that she does. She puts a lot of hard work into this, and it's very respectable, and I love it. So make sure you guys are checking that out as well. Now, you're talking about converting His Final Girl into a screenplay.
Yeah.
Um, how long has that been in the works for?
Not very long, and since I have deadlines, I'm a novelist first and foremost, so I have to, do my obligation to my readers and put out my books on time. But when I wrote the Be Mine series, I'd always wanted to write a B movie. I thought it would just be awesome. I love 80s B horror. So, and then it was also in the process of every time I write a story, the characters always start falling in love and it becomes a romance. Even though like I
Mm-hmm.
always wanted to write horror, and I was agonizing over that when my publisher wanted another book series out of me. And I'm like, I really want to write horror though. And he's like, why can't you do both? So that's where the final couple term came along. But anyway, back to the whole screenplay. I wrote this series of books to read like B movies, and then I'm like, wait a minute, I could just turn one of those into a B movie because they
Right.
already, that's what they were supposed to be. But it's going to take me a long time and it's very challenging, and I'm learning about how the formatting's different. I kept like when dialogue, for example, in a screenplay, there's no quotation marks around the dialogue, and I had to backtrack and erase all of them.
Right.
And then the other thing is everything has to be in Courier font, and that's like my most hated font.
I know.
I'm with the whole manuscript format Times New Roman.
Well, what I love about this is the fact that you're trying to do this adjustment, but you're doing it on your own. Like this is the thing where like I want to
mm,
do a screenplay. I want to take one of the works that I've done and turn it into a screenplay. And I think that's really awesome that you're taking the helm on this. You're taking the reins and you're doing it on your own. And now you said that this is something you've always wanted to do. Is writing a script always been up there with being an author, or has it kind of just like grown as you've been doing your novels?
it's kind of grown. I never really thought about doing movies other than like my best friend and I used to do weird skits together. Like in third grade, we did a Psycho homage, but her mom wouldn't let us use ketchup to be fake blood while I got murdered in the shower. So we made blood splatters out of construction paper, like
Oh,
cut them
that's
and put tape
awesome.
on the back. It was funny, but other than yeah hanging out with that friend, I didn't really consider my movies love as other than loving to watch movies. I'm in 2 movie clubs. Well, we're sort of one big movie club, but we have 2 Facebook groups for them. One's Halloween Horror Club, where we watch a horror movie every night in October. And then also we watch at least 2 horror movies a week. So we're like watching movies in a chat room and making snarky comments and talking to each other. But watching all these movies, I'm like, it would be really fun to make one. And it would be fun to move from a fan over to a creator.
Now, it's let's say that you got the screenplay done and it got picked up. Would you want to be part of the direction of the film, or is this something that you're just willing to kind of sit on the sidelines, like, and watch happen?
I'd probably sit on the sidelines. Like, I would have a couple things that I would demand. You know,
Sure.
The hero's got to have long hair. I have a thing for that. So, just little things like that.
Sure. Well, it's your work. It's your brainchild. I think that it's absolutely fair for you to say that you'd like a couple things to be exactly the way that you have them in your head.
Mm-hmm.
So we know, Brooklyn, what you got going on here in the future and what you're doing now. And I want to remind everybody, the links to follow her and stay up to date on what she's doing in the future can be found here in the description. But for a second here, Brooklyn, I want to go back to the past. And I want to talk about what you started in the horror genre, your first horror movie. And Brooklyn, the first horror movie that you watched was?
Nightmare on Elm Street.
As if you guys couldn't tell. And that's a wonderful beanie you have there, by the way.
Thanks. I got it on Etsy, and I'm like, I love it. I wear it all the time.
Yeah, it's amazing. So I don't think it's any secret what A Nightmare on Elm Street means to me as a human being, but do you remember how old you were the first time that you had seen it?
I was 2.
Wow. That is incredible.
Yeah, what happened was, my mom was always a horror junkie. She told me that she saw Jaws like 50 times when she worked at the movie theater. And she was still willing to watch it with me hundreds of times. But to that very first time, my dad was off on deployment or whatever, and she was watching Nightmare on Elm Street, and I got out of my bed and snuck behind the couch and then was watching it. And then she finally caught me, noticed I wasn't scared, and she never liked really watching movies alone, so she just grabbed me and plopped me on the couch next to her, and then we were horror buddies ever since. And then it's like, all through my childhood, you know, when my brothers came along, she'd put us all to bed, wait about 20 minutes, tiptoe back down, open my door, and go, Brock, come on, let's watch a movie. So...
That's so awesome. Like, and see, I grew up in a video store, and my parents were the same way. We all always gravitated to the horror section, and that was the cool thing about having parents that owned one, is you could take as many as you wanted. So that's really where horror started for me as well, was sitting in a video store, noticing this poster on the VHS and being like, hey, that's something I need to watch. So
my mom and I watched that one. We about lost it at the giant purple monster.
Oh yeah. That's still my favorite horror movie to this day. It was my first. It's my favorite.
It's a wild ride.
Yeah. Enough about me. Let's stay with you and the man of your dreams, Freddy Krueger.
Yes.
Which scene would you say it was that affected you the most from A Nightmare on Elm Street?
Tina in the body bag. Like, it was for the first couple times. I hadn't been to school yet because I was a toddler. So just, you know, seeing her at a desk, and then that was all abstract for me. But even after going to school and just seeing, you know, she's like in a mundane environment, and then she turns her head and there's her friend in this bloody body bag, and then just that trail of black ichor that's kind of like blood but not, that she follows, and the hand flopping. It's just
Nancy.
Yeah.
Yes,
I learned later they actually really did have bugs in her mouth, and they used real eels at her feet.
Gel. Yeah, that's so gnarly. Like, it's so, I could have done it. I'd have been like, well, my death was cool, but that's about where we're going.
I'm kind of like, maybe, as long as there's no slugs. I don't know why.
The slimy?
Yeah, I don't know. And or leeches. No slugs, no leeches. But cover me in spiders, I'm fine.
Timon and Pumbaa were full of shit. Those slimy ones do not look satisfying.
They really don't.
So, we know what scene affected you the most, Brooklyn, but what would you say your favorite scene from A Nightmare on Elm Street is?
The booby trap montage. That was like, because watching other horror movies, it's like I ended up with high expectations, you know, after my first. So watching all the rest of the ones where it's just a girl in a nightgown running upstairs or in a basement or in a logical place and screaming and tripping all the time was just not great. So, I mean, I always go back to Nancy, all preparing to pursue the monster herself and catch him. And she's just setting up all these ingenious things, that big ass hammer, the exploding light bulb. I loved it.
Oh, she went full Kevin McAllister on him.
Mm-hmm.
So another thing we as horror fans love about the horror genre is the kills. We all love the kills, and to see in this movie especially, not very many kills, but every single one is extremely memorable. But which kill would you say affected you the most?
Oh, definitely Tina, that rotating room and her gasping and stuff, and that final blood splatter that had to be edited out of the theatrical, but then we did get it. Oh, it's just.
And I think people forget that this is a low budget film. Everything they did, they had to do with a very few amount of takes, and to the point where Freddy Krueger himself has 7 minutes worth of screen time in the film. Like, because of the makeup effects, they couldn't repeat them as much. So you actually see Robert Englund for 7 minutes in this film, but that's how memorable that he truly is. And like I said, in my opinion, my own personal opinion, the most iconic horror villain of all time. Now, I love my Jason. Jason is my guy. But there's just something about Freddy Krueger, Robert Englund. It's the same actor all the way through up until the end in 2010. There's just something about that that's so iconic to me. Now, that's my segue. We always talk about remakes in the horror world, and some are great, some are not. What were your opinions on the Nightmare on Elm Street remake?
Jackie Earle Haley's acting was pretty good, honestly. A lot of people are giving him shit. The makeup was kind of wrong, though. It's just we need the nose. It sounds silly, but the nose was just such a detail. And then they over relied on jump scares, and I think dealing more with the whole unique dream world stuff would have been more impactful. And then the thing I utterly hate the most, and I mean, I've gotten into arguments with people over this, is that they made Freddy a pedo. I know in the original draft of the original Nightmare on Elm Street, they were going to have him be a pedo, and then they changed their minds at the last minute. But it was a stroke of genius. It worked so well just to make him a child murderer. And part of it is because, and a lot of horror movies are low budget, and child actors can be just terrible. So it's kind of a guilty pleasure to watch the annoying kid get killed in the movies. It's like you hate that little kid. So it's just great that Freddy kills kids. You know?
Well, see, and it's funny because
in movies, not in real life.
Right.
It'd be horrible in real life.
But I also agree with you on the point where I think Jackie Earle Haley was given an impossible task to live up to Freddy Krueger. But he did something that you just talked about, and I talked about this on our Versus episode, and he did something that Robert Englund could never ever do, and that's make us hate Freddy Krueger, you know? And I think that that's why we all did not like the remake the first time we had seen it. You know, oh, that's not my Freddy, that's not my Freddy. It's not, you know, we're not supposed to, we're not supposed to like the child killer. Like, we're not, but Robert Englund is so charismatic that all of us, when we're watching these films, we're like, ooh, I can't wait to see how he kills these people.
Yes.
You know, but in the remake, you know, you get him like licking her face, and she's like, fuck, ooh, sounds fun. You're like, you get this stuff, and you're like, oh no, fuck this guy.
Yeah.
And we got to the point to where we were like, wow, I hate the villain finally. I don't want the villain to win. I want Freddy to die. And one other thing I'll say about the remake has grown on me a lot. I wouldn't say that I love it, but I do like it enough to go to second base with it. And I would say that the ending of the Nightmare on Elm Street remake is the best ending of any Nightmare on Elm Street film there is. I think A Nightmare on Elm Street, 1984, is the best horror movie, in my opinion, when it comes to being a perfect horror film, until the last 5 minutes with that stupid looking Freddy car. I think that's the worst thing in the world, with the blow up doll getting sucked into the window. Pathetic. I hate it. But no Nightmare on Elm Street movie has a good ending, in my opinion, except for the remake. You know, when you have the Freddy, it doesn't look the greatest, but when he comes through that mirror and grabs the mom by the head and pulls her back into the mirror with him, and Nancy's just left screaming. I do love the ending to that film, but it's funny to think that remake was 12 years ago. Would you like to see a sequel to the remake, or would you like to see maybe a prequel or another remake happen? Is that you? Would you like to see the world of Freddy Krueger continue in some way now?
I'm just sort of open to another attempt at a remake. People had brought up Kevin Bacon as a possibility, and I think he could do it. But either way, no matter who they'd get, I'd prefer them to be, like England, a Shakespearean actor.
Yeah.
Because the body language and the gravitas involved with it was just missing from the other one. Like, there's a lot of valid points in the remake. I do like the way they updated the modernized way to stay awake. They, like, had those injectable things.
Mm-hmm.
That was great. But I do disagree that none of the original franchise had perfect endings. I think the Dream Master had the perfect ending. I thought that was just badass.
See,
and in my head canon, the whole thing ends there, because I don't like 5 and 6.
See, me personally, we just did a Nightmare on Elm Street franchise ranking, and even though I say a Nightmare on Elm Street is probably the perfect horror film, when it comes to being my personal favorite, it's the Dream Master. I grew up with the Dream Master. That's when I watched the most. Sure, I watch it now, and I'm like, oh man, there's so many flaws in this film. But like, I don't know, like the nursery rhyme and looking in the mirror. These are just things that I didn't like the idea of it. And then the water, when they're at the fountain and she sees Freddy. But like I said, I love the Dream Master, and I think that growing up, that's the one probably the horror movie besides House, or sometimes They Come Back, that I watched the most. So much love and respect for that Dream Master call there.
And Alice has the best final girl character arc. Like, she grows the most as a character out of any final girl I've ever seen.
Yeah, absolutely.
So,
I completely agree with you. So now I want to take a little break from Nightmare on Elm Street here for a second. We talked about your first horror movie and how much Nightmare on Elm Street means to you. But now I kind of want to throw a little bit of a curveball at you here for a second.
Okay.
My little buddy Ghostface has a question for you. What's your favorite scary movie, Brooklyn? What is your favorite horror movie of all time?
Night of the Demons.
Oh, very nice.
It's so fun.
Mm-hmm.
And that thing with the apples, you know, it had like nothing to do with the rest of the movie, but they set it up in the beginning and then you got it as an epilogue. That was genius.
Yeah. And like you said, the best way to describe that movie, fun. Night of the Demons is a fun ride from beginning to end. I completely agree with you on that. So we are almost at the end here. The credits are about to roll. The curtain's about to drop. We're at the third act here. But before we go, I want to go back to a Nightmare on Elm Street here for a second, Brooklyn. And what we're going to do is rank this on a skull count. Now, we're not ranking it on acting, direction, nothing like that. We're not being critics here. What we're doing here is strictly judging this movie on how much it affected you on first viewing. So 0 skulls being not effective, 5 being extremely effective. You can use half and quarter skulls anywhere in the middle. What would your ranking of a Nightmare on Elm Street be?
You said 4 or 5 was the top. I'm so
5
sorry.
is the top.
5 is the top? Okay, I will give 5 to the first one, and 4 and 3, 4 and a third to Dream Master or Dream Warriors. 4 and 3/4 for the Dream Master. Just because I wanted to be Alice, so that just got me more. Even though Dream Warriors had like the cooler like world building and stuff. That was
I think that
I'll show my shirt too.
Had...
it's the Warriors, but it says Dream Warriors.
Yeah. See, I think that the Dream Warriors is, when it comes to being an all-around film, I think it's probably the best of the bunch when it comes to the character arcs. I think that the Dream Warriors is the very first time I watched a horror movie like this and was very actively rooting for both the villain and the kids. I didn't want to see any of them go. And they really took a chance by killing off Heather Langenkamp in that film. That was really big, to kill off the final girl from the first one. And like I said, I love Joey. I love Kincaid. The puppet death when he's getting taken down the hallway.
Yeah, that was so, like, you could almost feel your arms going, and you're like...
Yes. And then, the girl, the addict, when he, the syringe finger. Anybody that struggled with any type of addiction knows that feeling of I've beaten this, and now somebody is using it against me. Now, obviously, they're not using it against you in our real life of doing that, but they do have that. People have used your addiction against you on other ways of using it against you. So that metaphor of using your own addiction against you after you've beaten it is something for me that was really, really, not as a kid so much, but as an adult, a
Mm-hmm.
really hard pill to swallow to watch somebody that beat their addiction lose to the addiction.
Yep.
So I agree with you. Now, as I've gotten older, I've grown to appreciate 2 a lot more. I think 2 is very dark, and I think it's a lot of fun.
Same.
Um,
Same.
I'll never like 5. It just
Me
doesn't.
too. I hate it.
Freddy's Dead, I have a very special place in my heart for because my uncle took me to see it in the movie theater in 3D when I was a kid, and like that's just one of those memories that I remember. I remember going to Applebee's, me, my cousins, and my uncle, and then going to see
Mm-hmm.
Freddy's Dead. And as a kid, Freddy's Dead versus as an adult is 2 completely different things. So as a
Yep.
kid, I get to watch a guy play video games and die in the video game and
Yeah, I love that.
3D. So Freddy's Dead will always have a special place for me, but I agree that it's dog shit. And then
Mm-hmm.
I'm also a big fan of Wes Craven's New Nightmare. I think it was great. I think that he took a big risk.
Mm-hmm.
I think we can all agree we're glad it flopped, because if it would have been a big hit, I don't think we would have gotten Scream. I think that he would have continued something like New Nightmare if it would have done really good instead of going balls out on Scream. And I think Scream revolutionized the horror genre as well. So
Mm-hmm.
I do, again, Brooklyn, want to say thank you so much for coming and hanging out and talking Nightmare on Elm Street with me.
Oh, thank you.
I know I said it a bunch of times, but it's my show. I'm going to say it again. All of Brooklyn's links are down here in the description, guys. So please make sure you're giving her a follow on social media and checking out her books. She's putting her heart and soul into them. And the reason you're going to follow her on social media is so you can stay up to date on the screenplay she's writing. So that way we can check out what's going on with that. So,
No,
Brooklyn,
definitely.
please don't go anywhere. I got a couple more questions for you.
Okay.
Everybody else, as always, keep talking horror, stay what you are, and we'll see you guys soon.